This is E&P Reports from Editor and Publisher Magazine, the authoritative voice of news media since 1884, serving newspapers, broadcasts, digital, and all multimedia news publishing. And hi, welcome once again, Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine. If you are listening to me or us on your favorite podcast platform, by all means, please follow us. Watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below me, hit the bell to the right. You'll get an update each and every time we upload a new episode of E&P Reports. I've got new friends and old friends here, especially a very, very old friend, Gordon Borrell. Gordon, happy birthday.
Very old friend.
You and I have birthdays near each other. Mine's Sunday. When's yours?
Mine is the 21st of April.
Oh, my word. Your birthday. Well, we're releasing this on. It's this week. Everybody say happy birthday, Gordon.
Happy birthday, Gordon.
There you
Thank
go.
You. They just keep coming.
You'll see it all on Facebook, I'm sure. New friend, Angela Bitasso. Angela, I am a very close friend of Jim Doyle. You are now the CEO and president of what used to be Jim Doyle Associates, now JDA Media, if I may say, the preeminent media, TV, I would say, revenue consulting firm in the world. Do you agree?
Well, I would agree with that. Absolutely. Revenue accelerator. So thank you for that, Mike, and I'm happy to know you.
I'm honored. And Tom Sly, you and I go way back a bit. You're VP Revenue, National Media, Scripps. You've been there for a while, 4 years now. You've also been the VP of Digital Revenue. Am I correct, Tom?
Yeah, I've actually been at Scripps 10 years. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yes, but in this new role for about 4 years, yeah.
We're going to be unpacking the latest Borrell Benchmark study together, which has got some real revealing information, Gordon. We're looking forward to having you break it down for us, and we're going to try to interpret it and find a way to find good news in this, but we'll get to all that right after this.
This episode of E&P Reports is sponsored by IQ Audience Plus by Town News. Consumer revenue has never been more important. Digital leaders at media organizations worldwide are asking the same question. How do we accelerate the growth of consumer revenue? Traditional one-size-fits-all paywalls aren't the answer. They're blunt instruments that treat all visitors the same way, costing you money. IQ Audience Plus by Town News is a smart, dynamic metering solution that empowers you to maximize revenue by identifying key audiences, seeding engagement, and growing membership and subscriptions. Ready to supercharge your consumer revenue, grow engagement, and bolster your advertising income? Visit townnews.com/EP today to learn more about IQ Audience Plus by Town News.
All right, Gordon, why don't we kick it off with you? You took a hiatus on the benchmark study. Is that correct? It's been over 2 years since you've issued this local digital ad study, right?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of data involved, over 10,000 entities, local media entities that we track, and things got wonky. I think that's an official word right now. For 2 years, and it was just very difficult to collect data. Some public companies reported a little bit late. So we just felt, okay, we're going to take a hiatus from this, do some additional research, shore up the numbers, and come back. And that was 2020. So in 2021, we decided the same thing. Wow, things are just still, pretty crazy out there. So we're now back with a very solid report, 66 pages, and it takes a look at everything that happened from 2019 to early 2022. It covers the first quarter of 2022. It shows really some drama unfolding.
I'm going into the official Scrabble dictionary. You can play wonky if you wish. It is a legal Scrabble word. It's got a K and a W and a Y, so I think it's worth about 26 points.
Big
Good
numbers.
job. Okay, so what are the first takeaways when and we at E&P appreciate you giving us, advance information on this, but I saw some interesting stuff. Number one, TV is all about OTT now. Is that what you're kind of seeing, Gordon?
Yeah, and that's been the case for a while, TV. But if you look at just that part, Mike, I think you miss the bigger picture, and that is that OTT is a disruptor, much as online classifieds were a disruptor to the newspaper industry. And as a disruptor, it's a distractor. So for broadcast TV, which should be tackling OTT, absolutely. The thing that tends to be missed is that a disruptive innovation creates a new market. And so the incumbent in the business, in this case, TV, tends to focus on bigger advertisers, just people who would advertise on OTT, selling OTT to them. And the industry is very well aware of this. It's just a really hard thing to break out of. Meanwhile, the bigger customer base, the larger number of customers, and actually the larger spending, it's not spending per client, but the larger spending comes from a completely new to TV set of customers. And they're typically radio customers. More radio customers, radio buyers are more likely to buy OTT than TV buyers. And you would think 100% of TV buyers would be likely to buy OTT.
Yeah, because they're already doing this.
Crazy.
Yeah. That's so there's now a battle for a lot of OTT between TV and radio. What did, and we're going to get to our panel in a second, but what did COVID do to annual digital spending? Because when I started perusing, it looks like it slowed down for a bit, but then COVID actually accelerated the demand for digital. Did I have that right? Or
yeah, and we see this when there's an economic trigger. That's why we kind of stop and really study things, because what an economic trigger does, it could have been the very brief recession in 2000, 2001, the dot-com bubble burst, or the deeper one in 2000, late 2007, 8, 9, or this one. And there really wasn't even a recession this time. It was just, a month, 6 weeks of downturn, which is not technically a recession, but it is an economic trigger. And what happens is that trends tend to get magnified. So a downward trend goes down more, an upward trend goes up more. And sometimes trends get a little bit reversed. What we saw is that 9% of companies, media companies that we surveyed, 9% said that COVID had a negative effect. So you can see it was, okay. Wow. So it had a positive effect. And we have a comment after a comment from them saying, when we asked them, okay, tell us why you said that. Why did it have a positive effect? Why did it have a negative effect? And for the most part, what they said, those who said it had a positive effect, said it gave us time to stop and reassess our strategy. And in the end, we realized, holy crap, we need to double down. And so we saw this phenomenal spring in digital revenue for media companies, TV, newspapers, radio in 2021. And what happened was it actually reversed a 15-year trend in which Google and Facebook had been pulling, and other pure play companies had been pulling a greater share out of local markets. So more and more local advertising dollars went to those companies, and the share that local media companies were getting, even though they were selling more, their share was actually declining. That got reversed, and now they're back with a vengeance. Newspaper, radio, TV, cable systems are really giving television stations a run for their money and selling digital as well.
Is that due to the fact that advertisers are saying, I've had it with Google and Facebook, I want to try other solutions, or the local media companies that are presenting all these solutions are just getting better at their craft? And Angela, okay, Gordon, you first, and I want to see.
Just briefly, I think it's a combination of things. I do think that they're a little tired. The rates for Google keywords are phenomenal, and they're just a little tired of that. We saw a first-time dip in the amount of money going out to Google a couple of years ago. So that occurred. But I think the underlying factor to all of it is OTT. OTT is not like a Google keyword where you could just get on and bid on HVAC service company in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, right? You can bid on that. That's easy. Or you've got a mountain bike and a bike shop, and you type in, we got this great new mountain bike. Look, here's a picture of it. You can't do that with video. You need a script, you need lighting, you need professional sound, you need somebody to hold the camera and shoot it. And so who do they call? I challenge you to call YouTube. Go find a number and call them and get them to help them with your video. Who do you call? It's tougher to do. And so you turn to a local media company, particularly a television station. I mean, these guys know everything about video, right? And to some extent, cable, they kind of know about video. So what we think is that growth, what we know is that a lot of that growth is in video, and that's where the share is being stolen back.
All right, so go ahead, Angela. You're training up these reps. Do you see this now? Are they just getting better at their craft?
Well, I think they are getting better at their craft. Now, the thing of, Gordon, I want to say, though, I don't think the advertisers are just calling us. I wish they were, but we are calling them. And we are presenting the OTT solutions, right, with the rest of our bevy of tools. But we're getting better at getting out there. We've got the boots on the streets, the local sales teams. We're contacting the bike shop and others. Now, I think there's a little bit, I want to add to why during the pandemic did we see, this bump up. Yes, the media companies stopped down, started to refocus, retool. Some of it was just coincidental. The OTT products were coming out during that time, and they were very good. Things like Flex under Fox, and now Premion was already there, Compulse was there, but I do believe that there was some coincidental that was coming out during that time. The other thing was cost of entry. So where a local seller was selling $20,000 or $10,000 a month to a local advertiser during the pandemic, when everyone shut down, was worried about their staying in business on the local side, they knew they had to keep their name out there. They knew they had to do some marketing, but this was in fact, OTT has higher cost per thousands than just local broadcast. However, the larger cost of entry, meaning how much you need to do in aggregate, is
it's a smaller order. A smaller guy can get into OTT, where a bigger dog can afford broadcast TV. Do I have that right?
Right, but there's also and then there's another nuance. It's the ease of entry. Right. So you can quickly get on it through broadcast, whereas maybe other things through broadcast sellers to jump onto that. Not just OTT, because we're talking about this study with all digital products. So, set aside the video that needs to get done, but just the digital products. This whole study is about all of digital rising. Yes, OTT was the largest inside the broadcast space, but digital in general went up because of ease of entry, cost of entry, and of course the tools just getting better during that time.
Let me swing it over to Tom, if I may. Tom, where is your company right now when it comes to OTT on a local or national level? Tom, where is Scripps right now?
Yeah, I would say we were very early. In fact, I remember probably 6 years ago having conversations with Gordon about OTT in our early days with Newsy. And so we are distributed across many different platforms, fast services, of course, apps. And one of the things I'll tag on to what Angela was saying, look, at the end of the day, OTT was the perfect product at the perfect time. And so we've got a lot of different, factors going in. People are cord cutting, they're spending, less time, let's say, necessarily on cable. It's harder for buyers to get the GRPs or the impressions they're looking for. And so OTT provides unique reach. And it actually, we can put it on every presentation we take to a client and show where it actually brings them more unique audience. And so, I mean, it's an easy, product to sell. We're also reaching customers that are difficult to reach because maybe they're cord cutters and they exclusively stream and they don't even watch, over the air or cable. And so it makes a lot of sense. And the other thing I will say is, from a salesperson standpoint, it's so easy. They've already got the creative. It's not like we have to go do 300 by 250s, for display ads or something like that. They understand video. They know how it works. They've got a digital budget, and they're all trying to help these clients navigate this digital ecosystem that continues to grow and expand. So it's been really easy to sell, really easy to train. And for those of us that have trained salespeople for many years, you know how difficult it was with search and with building web pages with a digital extension and all that. This is television. It's really easy. It's just different audiences on a different platform with the same creative, and you can make it a part of the same presentation, and it's very easy for the audience and the customer to understand it.
So, Gordon, is this the reason why TV stations have surpassed newspapers in terms of average digital dollars for the first time in your benchmark study? And is it because OTT just happens to be the right product at the right time for them? And they're just because this is it. This was a big shift. And when you asked this is something I saw there too. You asked, what is the number one digital product you're selling? Half of the TV station said OTT and not one newspaper. Is that correct, Gordon?
So yes, and that is, it is the right product at the right time. And that is, OTT is the reason television has surpassed newspapers. It is the product, to latch on. We're really somewhat surprised. We knew it was coming, but we didn't think it would be quite this fast based on the length of time it took other types of media to kind of, formats of digital media to catch on, like social media. It took a little while.
Yeah.
OTT sort of happened just like that, it seems. I think primarily because of the pandemic, although there was a lot of stuff set in place. So when you look at the total, all media managers responding in our survey saying, telling us what is the number one source of digital revenue, targeted banners is certainly number one, but for nearly 18% of all of them, it's OTT. So 18% of media managers are now saying OTT is their number one source of digital revenue. And for as you mentioned, for TV, 50% of them say it's their number one source.
But
so
not one newspaper said that. Not one.
Yeah, keep it in perspective. Most of them are selling OTT, Mike, in some form. And OTT, by the way, is any form of video marketing. It's not something that gets pushed up to YouTube or Hulu or Sling. It's any form by the Internet Advertising Bureau's Interactive Advertising Bureau's definition. That's what OTT is. Lots of newspapers are selling it. 0% said it's their number one source. So they haven't quite gotten there yet. But I think a number of them will within the next 6 months, because loads of them are really pushing in video right now.
Angela, you've got a background mostly in TV, but you also spent time at BELO. You know the culture of the newspaper world. You're still in Dallas, right? You're running your company out of Dallas. My question to you is this: could this be because the TV station understands the spot, already has the spot, has the ability to create it, and that is not part of the culture of newspapers, even though many vendors are now trying to give newspapers like Frequenz, trying to give newspapers turnkey, quick commercials to sell? Is this the reason you think, or is it just you're training them up and they're getting better at the craft?
Well, so first, I do have, I know the Dallas Morning News well from my, decade over at WFAA and then selling the products together. But I am not sure I'm equipped to answer that about the culture, because I do see them selling a lot of video. And to Gordon's point, they sell it. They just aren't citing it as their number one platform. So I don't know if culture's the issue, but I do know this. Because I am born and raised a broadcaster. Broadcast is very comfortable with it, like Tom said, and it's ours to lose, right? And so that's what I would say. And I'll let you, Mike, from the paper world or the newspaper background, tell us about that culture and that challenge.
Well, Gordon just said it right there. Gordon, you were saying that it requires a script and a voice and all this, but the kind of OTT that newspapers be selling now tends to be more like music in the background, lots of stock video footage, because they're not really equipped to go out and have production done. And, and then just a lot of, Ken Burns images coming in and out. So it's not the same quality, although I see some of that on my local cable, my local Fire Stick right now here in Tampa. I'm seeing some of those commercials emerge, but mostly what I am seeing looks like a pickup, where I'm seeing a spot that might have been sold by a cable company or a broadcast network being put within the show that I'm watching, on a Hulu or something like that. So I can't answer that question either. Gordon, any thoughts or insights, since you handle both broadcast and print clients?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because TV and newspapers, I believe, are similar, and that they see it as something, a video spot is something that needs to be produced and placed for exposure. And that's the classic form of video that is from the legacy video format, which is, okay, we have an audience, and they're watching some video, and now we're going to insert an interruption with a commercial spot in it. So newspapers do have video on their sites that they get from companies like STN Video and others that are, maybe sports clips or things like that. And they believe their job is to push, a 30-second spot into that, or put some type of sponsor on that, some interruption, right? The radio and cable folks see it very differently, and they are pursuing, and there's no absolute here, so this is more general.
Right.
The radio and cable folks see it a little bit more as production. So what they see is, oh, let's generate some content. You know, radio is very promotion oriented and very lively and very exciting, you know, and they like to hype a lot of things. So they love doing these types of videos, and they will produce something that's not necessarily a commercial, but it's video marketing. And they get a significant amount of money from the production cost of it. Cable, very, very much the same, a very significant amount of money from the production of that cable spot, which looks more like an infomercial than it does a 30-second or 1 minute interruptive spot.
All right, let's put OTT aside for a second, because there's still a good deal of spending going down. Correct me if I'm wrong, Gordon. When I went through the numbers on reach extension, programmatic banner ads are still very hot, especially in the newspaper space. Tom, I'm going to be at the LMC, the Local Media Consortium Spring Conference in Atlanta. I don't know if you're going to be there or not, but I got a panel I'm hosting called Identity Crisis. I'm going to have Scott Cunningham from Cunningham Tech. I'm going to have Matt Kaiser from Live Intent. I'm going to have Damon Reeve from the Ozone Project. And the keynoter will also be, but it'll be Sean Reichsecker, who is Basis Technologies. We're going to be discussing not the when, I mean, not the if, but when third-party data dies. Tom, what happens when we no longer can sell things programmatically? How will, in your opinion, how will that affect programmatic sales on a local level? And how does that affect now OTT, which is able, correct me if I'm wrong, to target commercials now using third-party data? Am I correct, Tom?
Yeah, so we're working on solutions, and in fact, you know, what you mentioned, Scott Cunningham in the LMC. You know, we have the News Pass ID is one of the solutions that we're working on. So, I mean, I think the industry is aggressively figuring out new ways, whether it's contextual, whether it's, you know, alternative forms of data. We will have targeting, and you know, and so it's just going to be a different currency, if you will, that we're going to be transacting against, a different form of identifying data. But there will still be various signals that we'll be able to use to target for advertisers, and whether it's display, whether it's you know, OTT, doesn't matter. And Mike, there's no way that programmatic is going away. All right. In fact, programmatic is accelerating. So I would never say that programmatic is going away. I would just say the way that we're going to be identifying audiences, we're going to be far more, the industry is going to be far more respectful of the rights of people and their data. And so I think that's what's more important. You know, the industry is doing a correction for what got out of hand with cookies. And we're searching and building, and over time, the crazy thing is, I don't think the buyers really know exactly what they're going to use, you know, in 2023, fall of 2023, when the cookie goes away. We're all still testing and experimenting, but there will be a solution in place, and we will continue to transact.
So the Local Media Consortium, and Gordon, I want to swing this question to you in a second, but Tom, I want you to give a little bit more, because you glanced over that. The Local Media Consortium is going to be aggregating, or is currently aggregating, tons and tons of news providers or content providers in order to capture this data, in order to be able to still do targeting. Am I making that too simplistic, or do I have the initiative correct?
Yeah. So working with Ozone and the News Pass ID, it's building an anonymized audience, you know, anonymized ID that's respectful of the user or the viewer and their data, and yet we're able to join and protect our data too. Because right now, you know, the cookies are actually many times, you know, people taking data off our sites. I mean, I remember 5 or 6 years ago, we looked at a study showing how basically some of the advertisers were, you know, dropping a cookie on you know, our sites and our viewers, and then going and retargeting, you know, those audiences other places where they could do it for far less, right?
Right.
And so, and we all know, those of us that have been in the news business, especially in local media, when we understand the value of local news, it's where people come to be informed. They want to be informed about their community. They want to be informed about their country, maybe about voting. They also want to be informed about new products. And so it's a great place for advertisers. So what will happen is they won't be able to steal that data in the future.
Let's assume now that this is all going to happen in the next, well, Google keeps pushing the date out, but they're going to finally say, that's it, we're killing those cookies on Chrome. Gordon, I love it when, I don't know if you're still doing that slide, but I remember when I saw you speak at a conference, maybe it was pre-COVID, and you showed how confused local advertisers are. And you were saying, where are they getting their advice? And you said, Daryl. You said, Daryl in the garage, right? And which is true, that these garage-oriented, how should I put this? Just local agencies that are springing up everywhere to help local businesses find that path to success in digital advertising. If it's harder to get that data, do you think this could change the whole complexion of how local media starts to get a larger share of local digital advertising? Should we be the one in control of more data? Does that make sense, my question? Because this seems to be this could be a huge disruption on where the money goes.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't worry about it.
Okay.
Because it's one of those things that will find a solution. And Tom and Scripps can address it much better than I can. They're working on it, and many other companies are working on it. But the way I look at it is that we talk a lot about news and valued news content. And what do most of us do online? When we're looking to buy something, do you go looking for news content and let it hit you? So that's why companies like Amazon, for instance, have this tremendous amount of advertising revenue that is now coming to them, tens of billions of dollars. So it's that advertising content that is, I think, equally, perhaps even, maybe it's heresy here, more valuable than the news content itself. And that type of content is always going to have very, very high value to advertisers to reach wallet-ready consumers. On the other side, there's the branding level of advertising, which is also very important and needs to have, beyond just mass, maybe a little bit more of a target. That may have a bit of trouble, but I don't really worry that much about it, because our audience, all we listen to, all we really ever pay attention to is the advertiser. The advertisers are not worried about it. They're really not. They're just looking for viable ways to get their messages out. And they have a way now to track it, particularly with digital media, to say, wow, I placed this campaign, I had more sales, I want to do more of that. So they're not quite down deep in the trenches. The national brands are, but the local regional advertisers, not quite there.
It's because this is a perfect segue back to Angela. Angela, you're one of your close friends, and the gentleman you took over the company from, Jim Doyle, and I go back 40 years. We both sold AM radio in the same town together many years ago. And one of the things he always used to, he never got caught in the weeds. He always go back to basics. Like how should I put it? Just reach and frequency, right? So this doesn't concern you either, right? Your job is to train up a sales force to be able to ask the right questions, right? And just provide the proper solution rather than get caught up in the technology. Am I correct?
Well, yes, we're selling the solutions. Well, we're selling the problem, and then we've got the solutions. And the great news is people like Tom and others that Gordon cited at other media companies are building out very robust solutions for their sales teams. And we have the access to those platforms. And so, yes, ask the right questions, but, provocative business questions. So we have a business conversation, and then we've got eyeballs, and we've got people that, that they need to reach. And as Gordon said, on the local side, you see the results right there. That's why I love working in the local media space. So when we sell to our roofer or our chiropractor or the, as we say, the furniture store, the used automotive guy, gal, and we talk with them the next, as the campaign is running, we know what is happening real world and if it is working. And we make any pivots we need to make, but most of the time we see those results, which is why the confidence level is so high in the products that was also cited in this particular chapter that we're diving in. So
you have a convention coming up. I'm going to let you plug it if you can, because I'm going to be there. Some amazing speakers, and it's going to be in my hometown of Tampa. Why don't you quickly give it a plug before we call it a day here?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, first, we're going to have Corey Elliott from Borrell. So Gordon and I were just talking about that. He's going to be one of our speakers. Shelley Palmer from New York and Syracuse University is going to be there. He's the professor of advanced media in residence. He's very interesting, very provocative. We've got Andy Core. We've got oh gosh, Anna Liotta talking about generational managing and leading the generations. And by the way, what I also wanted to say is that Tom, some of your peers in the local media space will be there. We work with lots of broadcasters over 100 different markets, and the line sales managers will be there. So
how do they find out more? It's jda.media, right? Just go to
jda.media. So just go there. All the information's there. And it's .media, not .com. A lot of people make that mistake.
And Tom, if people want to learn more about what you're doing with the Local Media Consortium, there is an event coming up which will be featured in Atlanta. Tom, are you going to the LMC in Atlanta?
Actually, I am not this year. I'm on the board and I should be there. But a year ago, my wife and I committed to a trip to Greece for 2 weeks. And it's the honeymoon. We had a honeymoon, but when we were going to, we were originally going to Greece, and there was some type of a terrorist thing there, and our travel agent called and said, you can't do that. There's a travel advisory, so we had to punt. And so finally, 32 years later, we're going. So I'm not going to be there, unfortunately.
But you do recommend that people go to localmediaconsortium.com and check out the spring conference, which will be all about how we plan for
Absolutely.
the future with all this digital disruption.
Yeah, and I think it's a great year for a couple of reasons, Mike, because first off, we haven't been together in a couple of years, right? And there's been a lot of changes, as Gordon has mentioned in his report. So I think this is a really important year for folks in local media to be there, to see what's going on. There's going to be some information about NewsPass and the NewsPass ID. And so I think that'll be really beneficial to those that maybe aren't building the solution yet. And I think it's harder for smaller companies sometimes to do that. So learn from the big companies, right?
I hear you. I hear you. That's localmediaconsortium.com. Gordon, I can't plug your conference because I just attended it and it was amazing. Although I left there feeling pretty old because it was a lot of cool information about Gen Z. One thing I loved about your conference this time, because I remember going 2.5 years ago or 2 years ago, right before COVID in Miami, that there was a speaker who was kind of implying that DIY was the future. There really was not that much need for a trained, honed local sales force. I felt a lot of energy at yours about training again and local. What is your opinion, or at least Borrell's position, on the future of local ad sales, sir, if I may put you on this?
Well, not long after that, I remember watching that as well. Not long after that, we came out with some research that completely refuted that DIY was the future. And it said, look, we asked advertisers, do you use DIY? Do you use, when you consummate, when you prefer to have someone handle a sales rep handle a sale with you? Do you use email? Do you use an in-person meeting? Do you use a telephone? Do you use DIY? And 58% of them said, yeah, we use DIY. Then we said, okay, if you had only one, pick one. Which one would you prefer to use? DIY was like that. And for those of you who can't see that, that's 14%. So 86% said, no, hell no, not DIY. We prefer to deal with a person on the phone, in person, or by email. So I think the future of the next, 3 to 4 years, I think that's a window of opportunity that kind of closes fast. And then things really, really change. Probably another economic trigger will kick in pretty soon. This is local media's game to lose. Advertisers are more confused than ever, local businesses, about where to put their dollars, and they need to talk to someone. They can't pick up the phone and call Google. They can't pick up the phone and call TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. So this is, and Angela, I'm sure you will agree, Tom, as well. This is local media's game to lose. They need to morph into marketing experts. And the report really supported that as well. It said, ask the local media folks, where do you need training? And it was, we need to train sales reps on, products and services, things like that. But the bigger piece of that pie, where most of them said they needed something, was training the sales reps to be holistic marketing experts.
It was funny. Angela, go ahead. I know you're dying to say thank you, Gordon, for keeping me employed for the next few years. But go ahead.
At least the next 4 is what I heard. No, absolutely. And I think that what I'm hearing from those sellers is that, again, they've got the confidence in the products that their companies are bringing to them, but how do they use it, right? Where is it best used in that purchase funnel? And how do they sell those multi-platform presentations? How do they bring it together to best work for their client? And that's really where I'm hearing it. That's that. Is 5 too many? Is 3 too little? Is one? Most of them don't have just a one. So, they usually have, 2 or 3 now. But how do they work together? And then what's the lead, depending upon what's the need? And so that's where I'm hearing it. And then Gordon talked about this. Gordon and I briefly mentioned this at the beginning, where he and I had an offline conversation about execution. So what I'm hearing from the local sellers is that they believe in it, they sell it, they've got these multi-platform presentations, they've sold it, they go back, they hand it off to internal folks to go execute it, and there's a lot of stress around that. So ease of, the execution internally is a whole other bailiwick that we can address at a different time. But
all right.
I'm happy that sales training is still a part of it.
Tom, before you leave for Greece, if anyone wants to learn more about what you're doing with Local Media Consortium to help us keep the data, as you would say, I guess, honest, if I can put a term behind that, how do they reach out to you, Tom? What's your email address?
I'm tom.sly, it's SLY, at scripts.com. They can also reach out to Tobias and Scott at the LMC. So Scott Cunningham and Tobias Bennett. So
their contact information is at localmediaconsortium.com. Angela, if someone wants more, I already said it, I'll say it again, jda.media is where they can learn more out the JDA Media. I keep wanting to say Jim Doyle Associates, but Jim is, he's always going to be in there, in that name somewhere, right? And
absolutely.
And I'll see you soon in Tampa. And Gordon, happy birthday. If someone wants to really celebrate your birthday and give you a gift,
go to a liquor store, get something, put it in the box, and send it to me.
I thought they could just buy your report, but if you
that'll work too.
BorrellAssociates.com. Do I have that correct, sir?
You do.
There you go. Thank you all three. Stay healthy. Stay on top of all this. This is very exciting time. I guess the big takeaway today, or the poll quote, is it is for local media to lose right now. The opportunity is there, right, G? This is it. Correct?
This is it. And the numbers in the report show the local obtainable digital, which we've gotten down. Tom, you'll appreciate this. We used to have this big number and people said that couldn't be. So we just kept making it smaller. And we finally said, okay, this is the 14 or 15% that remains in the market. It's still tens of millions of dollars. So people are still not believing that, which kind of leads me to wonder, are they really excited about the opportunity or depressed by it? But yes, it's the game to lose. There's a lot of money out there, and we're seeing companies getting a 20, 30, 40, even a dominant share, 50% or more of that obtainable digital in their markets. And they're the ones that really believe that that money is out there and are going after it. And it's, like I said, in some cases, tens of millions of dollars.
There you go. All right. Thanks all for your valuable time today, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks. Thanks, Angelica.